Welcome to this walkthrough of TTW Digital's canvassing software. My name is Colin Boyle and I'm the Director of TTW Digital Limited. TTW Digital has been set up by experienced Green Party members with the sole purpose of delivering secure, scalable, low-cost canvassing software to the Green Party. I have been a Green Party member since 2013 and in that time I've been both a local party chair and a London regional coordinator. Other members of TTW Digital are Green Party members with software development and technical experience in the financial services sector, as well as councillors, election agents and campaign managers. Professionally, I lead the procurement and implementation of public sector IT systems. In this video, I'm going to give you an overview of how to set up your local party in the software, how to load in the first tranche of your electoral register along with any pre-existing canvassing data, and start canvassing. Firstly, each new local party needs to onboard onto the software. To start that process, we ask that each local party completes this register interest form. And then once we've received your application, we'll review it, get in touch, and then trigger the process to complete onboarding. That will gather some more information from you and allow you to set up your payment details on our system to pay your monthly subscription. It will also set up your first user, a local administrator, who will then be able to complete the rest of the steps that I'm going to show here. So, as indicated, we're going to assume that the local party has completed that onboarding process. For the example I'm going to use here is for Southwark Green Party. I'm going to log into our test system as a systems administrator user. So you will see multiple local parties referenced, but in practice a local party would only ever see the data and settings and users, etc. that relate to their local party. Also, just to note, all the personal data shown in this walkthrough is purely just illustrative test data. Okay, log in. We use our own instance of the same user authentication and management platform that the Green Party itself uses for controlling access to the member website. I'll now provide it with my two-factor authentication code. And that brings me to the opening screen. As I'm a sysadmin, I need to pick the particular party we're looking at. Obviously, it would take you direct to your local party. So the first thing we need to do to be able to canvass is set up some wards. I'm going to set up, as you can see, it's already preceded with some test data, but nothing for Southwark. So I will now create a new ward for Southwark. Just a note on the naming convention, we use the term polity to refer to the organisation that issues an electoral register. And at the moment we assume there's a one-to-one relationship between local party and polity. So if I skip forward to here, you can see St Giles is now set up. However, as yet it doesn't have any addresses associated with it, nor does it have any electors associated with it. As we're going to be bringing in historic canvassing data, we will need to also, before we can bring that data in, set up the elections that data refers to. I'm going to set up two elections therefore, one for the upcoming council elections and then one for the previous elections. This allows us to capture the data that we have currently and recently canvassed, as well as historic data from the previous election in this example. What we're doing here is we give it the date, we tell it which wards it applies to, and we create the election. This can be done incrementally. You can go back into this as you bring in more data, set up more wards. You can update this to include those two. As we said, we're going to create the second election. So we'll be able to see our historic data. Okay, so now we can upload the data file, the electoral register. So the steps here are, you have to prepare this offline. We have a user guide for that. I'm going to assume that's been obviously done. You pick your file. I'm going to use this one, which has one historic and one future election and 1,000 electors. We are importing at the moment the last full electoral register. We will be implementing functionality to allow you to do the monthly updates and also the annual updates. So we do have additional canvassing data that we want to bring in. So we're going to say yes to that. We're going to check that we've got the 2 elections that we set up that we want to bring data in against. And then we're going to tell it how in that file we have coded the different parties. Obviously it's pretty flexible. As long as it's consistent in your file, it'll be brought in correctly. And then the final stage is to check that what the system believes the mapping is between your data file and our internal system fields have been kind of correctly mapped. We have some intelligence in this to make that happen, but it's obviously we need to check that as well. So this is not picked up, that is the elector number. We just work our way across, check each one. And we come to our historic data. So that's us kind of finished the electoral register data itself. We can scroll down and pick up, tell it that is the 2022 election green voting intention data. That is the 2022 party, the preferred party or usual party. We can put in that's they voted in that election. We can now do the same for the data we've been collecting for next May. Green voting intention, party, and this time we can also tell it who's currently expected to be a postal voter at that election. So as I say, once we've done a check of that, we're happy with that, we can import the data. Now this should only take about 20 seconds. We've tested importing up to 100,000 records successfully and confident therefore we can bring in full electoral registers in one go if you'd like to do that. Equally, if you want to do it incrementally, that's also supported. So let's just check it's imported. Now what we haven't yet got is the link between the subset of the electoral register that relates to the ward and the ward itself, because the electoral register doesn't obviously include a ward field, it includes polling districts. So what we're now going to do is go into areas. We're going to create an area which is basically a mapping between a ward, and in this case we'll assume it is these 3 electoral polling districts. So that creates that ward. So we can see that ward there now. And you can also therefore see that it has mapped 288 addresses and 487 total electors out of the 1,000. So the remaining electors in that 1,000 are currently obviously associated with the other 3 polling districts, which we would therefore in due course map to another ward once we'd set that up. But that is it. That is all the data setup you need to do to start canvassing. So now I'm going to show you how canvassing works. So I'll go to canvassing. I'm going to switch this to make it look like a mobile screen. So this is what the user would be, a normal canvassing user would be presented with. They've got have the wards down the side. Then they can pick rounds or roads. I'll come back to rounds in a minute. Roads, it just shows you the alphabetically the roads, and then as we go into one, it'll show you alphabetically the households. So if we start at number 1, you can see we've already talked to Michael Chapman in this election campaign, and he's rock solid on the Greens. Other things we can see is, if we click there, we can see he voted at the last election as well. Back then he was quite supportive of us, and his usual party was Labour. We see we can moved him now to being, as I say, nailed on Green. Also, it tells you here that he's a postal voter based on what we uploaded. So that's great. We'll talk to Michael, and we'll move on to confirm he's still supporting us and move on to number 3. Now, number 3, we have already talked to David in this campaign, but we haven't talked to Peter. This time we do get to talk to Peter, and good news. He's quite supportive, and he tells us, that he usually supports the Liberal Democrats. So that's good. Again, we will click that as answered, and then move on to the next address, number 4. Now, Jana, unfortunately, tells us she's a Labour Party member and that she is not interested in hearing from us again. So we can go into the notes and note that she is does not want us to knock on her door again. That will appear next time we see this. So I'll just illustrate that, I'll go on to the next address and then just skip that one and go back to number 4. What you see now, apologies. Apologies for that. We will skip it and go back. Just come back again. I clicked through it too quickly. You can see that because we had just knocked that, you get this alert. So you can go, oh, actually, you don't need to knock on that door again. You also see now that it includes the do not knock tag. So moving on to number 5, we can see also another Liberal Democrat doesn't want to talk to us, support us. We'll move on again, save ourselves some time. Move on to number 6. We haven't talked to Julie, and again, Julie's quite supportive and is usually Labour. What else we can do though is we noted that actually number 6 is round the corner, around the side of the building. So that is now recorded up here under the address, and it will give future canvassers some extra help in locating number 6. Similarly, yes, we can then move on to number 7. This one is a nailed on green, but they've asked us for some help with some casework, so we can go in, select that tag, and we can add a phone number, an email address, and information about that casework. So we'll just make it up. And we can now see that we've got a note there showing that we've got some fly tipping, and if we click in we can see the details. So that is basically how canvassing works. The other options that we have, I'll go back to full screen, are if we go into canvassing and roads again, is we can also create these printed canvas sheets, which allow these when you go to print fit neatly onto A4, and you can print them out, give them to anyone who doesn't want to use the phone, or if you are needing a backup because maybe mobile phone reception isn't reliable, you've got this approach. And obviously when you get back to base, you need to enter the information. So again, you've got this kind of quick table that you can zoom down, adding in the data that you've picked up as you went along, and then save that in. So again, makes it relatively easy for those cases, hopefully by exception, where you need to enter data from kind of manual records. So beyond that, we have one more kind of area to illustrate, which is rounds. So obviously, experienced canvassers in an area, or people who know an area, they can probably manage with data kind of just being presented in alphabetical and a kind of numeric order. But obviously for someone who is just joining us for an action day, it would be helpful if we could create routes for them to use. So we'll just say Alnwick Court route. And here again, we can basically say, right, we want to go down along Alnwick Court, we want to start at number 1, and we want to go down all the odds. It'll add in the odds in order, and then we might say we want to come back in the opposite direction on the evens. And so now you can see it goes from 1 to 43, and then from 42 down the evens to number 4. Let's save that, activate it, and then when we go into canvassing again, into our rounds, we've got that available, and as you can see, that is now the order in which they will be presented to users. So that's basically it. It's that easy to get started using our software and get out there canvassing. If you want to know more, we've got an onboarding guide that explains in more detail the steps from initial registration through to scaling up that a local party needs to go through. We also have a number of user guides that we've already written, and the remainder are in development, to help particularly with the upfront tasks of getting your electoral register and any historical canvassing data ready to go. I hope you've enjoyed this review and walkthrough of our canvassing software. We're really keen to get this out to every local party, into the hands of every single Green Party member and supporter who's out there canvassing for us. We want to have the best possible result in May 2026. We look forward to supporting you with your campaigns. Please do get in touch. Please complete the register interest form, and we look forward to helping you win many more councillors on the doorstep. Thank you.